That's funny, Ray. I'm here with Ray Longo in the. It's been a very busy Ultimate Media Day morning. You just sat down on Chris's stand. You're about to lean on Lyoto Machida's. Are you quite superstitious about things?
I have a couple of superstitions. Nothing that'll enable me from doing anything, but I'm a little superstitious.
You're one of those guys who doesn't force himself into the spotlight, but we know how diligent you are behind the scenes, what a fight intellectual, what a fight strategist you are. You've done extraordinary things with Chris. You recognised that very early on.
Thank you.
For people that don't know, where did your interest in all this combat sport begin? Were you a young child? Was it Bruce Lee?
Yeah,
we're of that era, aren't we?
I'll tell you what, I was a young kid, and an instructor I had at the time, believe it or not, he was older than me. I was probably about 14. Came to my house one day, he knocks on the door, I don't know what he's doing, and he hands me a black belt magazine. He goes, "Read this. This guy knows where it's at." It was like Bruce's first, article where he's hitting a heavy big, the double M ball, and at that time, everybody was doing katas and forms, and he realized that this guy was something special, and I still got that article to today, and then I ended up being able to train, with the Jeet Kune Do guys from California would always come into New York, Richard Bustillo, Danny Inosanto, Paul Vunak. So, I fell in love with Jeet Kune Do a long time ago, and I was a young kid, and I think that's where all the, the concepts come from. And I think I've been surrounded by great martial arts people my whole life, and I'm going to continue to practice till the day I'm dead.
How important is it to you that we maintain an essence of that this is an Eastern philosophy as well, that there is a philosophy to being a martial artist and a mixed martial artist as well?
I think it's important, but look, at the end of the day, how about just be a nice guy? You know what I'm saying? I mean, how bad is that? Do unto others like you would have them do to you. I mean, it's not much different to me than that. It's not really East or West. It's a combination. I think Bruce's thing was you take a little bit from everywhere, and I don't just like Chinese food.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's it. But at the end of the day, be a good guy. I think that's. I'd rather. I want to train people like that. I want to train people that are like-minded. We just did a bunch of charity work back in Long Island. Giving back to people that aren't as fortunate as we are, and even in a fight camp like this, we took the time to do some good things, and I think it's great. So I don't look at it as, I think if you're a good guy, there's no need to, look at it as terms of East or West. Just do the right thing.
Well, the little noisy voice behind us as well is one of those inspirational figures. Little Isaiah, Isaiah Bird, who's running around behind us, who never shuts up, he never stops moving. He looks like an antelope on the move. He's got no legs. But he's like you can see his animal spirit when he moves, can't you?
Is it crazy? I mean, here's people complaining about little minor things. This kid's got
like
no
the traffic.
legs. Look at him. I mean, the kid's a ball of energy. We did a great fundraiser for this kid.
Yep. Tell us about him, Ray.
I didn't get to know him that well, but I watched him run around the gym, and Chris was very passionate about doing it. The wrestling community on Long Island is a very strong community, and they got together, and we held the fundraiser at the gym, and we all partook in it. It was a great event. Really great.
You talk about being a good guy in martial arts, about this philosophy. It's done a lot for Chris as well, hasn't it? It's done it for Chris Weidman, that is.
I think so. Yeah, I think, again, in our gym, I think, if you're not a certain type of individual, get weeded out. So most of the guys you see, I think, coming out of the camp are really just great guys.
Chris has struck me for a while. I don't know him very well personally. I've done several interviews with him. He reminds me of Cain Velasquez in the way he is. Chris stays on the same plane a lot. He doesn't. I'd make him a good poker player, for example, because he doesn't. Chris is a kind man. You can see that he's a very solid individual, but he doesn't give a lot away about himself behind the scenes. Is he a? Is there? I don't mean a different man in a bad way or another side to him. Is there a whole world going on that we don't see with Chris?
Well, first of all, I think he would make a great poker player. I think your observation is right. No, I think what you see is what you get, and I think the interesting part is even, in the fighting, you don't really get to know him until you're standing 2 feet from him. And I think that's what we're going to see in this fight, too. I don't think Lyoto's ever experienced anybody like Chris. I don't think Chris has ever experienced anybody like Lyoto. And who figures out who first is going to be the answer in this fight, which I think Chris will be victorious.
I tried to kind of go here with you yesterday,
Yeah.
but part of the great thing about Chris in the fights with Anderson Silva is that he, even though my belief is he did start to get drawn into the spider's web in that first fight, but that's my belief anyway. Obviously he finished him. I felt Anderson was just starting to get into his head during it. Chris has this great mental ability to not overthink who's in front of him either. And, I tried to suggest this to you yesterday, that Chris isn't going to, even though he respects Lyoto, he's not going to respect this distance that people normally give Lyoto,
Right.
this range allowance.
Yeah, Chris, I like to say, has a very high fighting IQ. This guy, and I believe he brings the X factor into the octagon with him. He's not going to follow Lyoto around like Mousasi did. He's going to cut off the octagon. He has a very smothering style that I don't think you're going to pick up looking at his fights until you're in there with him. And very, very intelligent fighter. And I think that's what makes this fight interesting, because I think Lyoto also is a counter fighter and a thinker. And I think there's a battle of wits, really. So it's going to be a great matchup.
Thanks very much.
No,
Great to speak to you.
anytime, man. You're the best.